This is the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast, the show that unpacks fantasy, faith, and life. I'm Bryce Johnson with Harrison Zuckerberg, and we are your fantasy coaches here to encourage you and help you win while also finding meaning and purpose throughout the fantasy season. We won't always be right, but we hope we'll be convincing as we provide fantasy advice and biblical encouragement. I'm coming to you live from the Unpacking It Ministry studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. Week 1 in the NFL is over. And so today on the show, we will discuss all the fantasy ramifications, some of the takeaways. Yes, it's only week 1, but we learned a lot. A lot of players got injured. A lot of players will have to be scooped up off of waivers. So who do we go get? What players are we panicking about already? And what players do we need to be patient with? And so that will be today's breakout topic that we'll get to in just a moment. But we encourage everyone to check out fantasyfootballfellowship.com. If you have not become a member yet, you can do so on the website, get access to all of our content. And each week we send out a new breakout. We make it available on our website where we take a fantasy concept related to the Bible, related to life. We got a bunch of different features that are included in that breakout each week. And so encourage you to check that out, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. We're excited about all the leagues that are starting up around the country that are utilizing Fantasy Football Fellowship. And so I hope those meetings are going great as you discuss these weekly topics. Also today on the show, we will talk about a number of the injuries, and we will begin doing some of our favorite segments from last year as well. Harrison will let us know the players that he believes are legit. And so we'll have some fun with that. And we'll also share some of our regrets already from the players that we missed out on drafting. Who do we regret not drafting? Just after week 1, we already know. We go, I can't believe I didn't get that guy. And then, as always, we do a little bit of confession and accountability as well, where when we get it wrong, we'll admit it. And so we'll get to that in just a little bit. But we begin our show with this week's breakout. And here's the deal. Week 1 always provides a lot of overreaction, and it's the first glance we get at the players that are on our team, our fantasy teams. And so often we look across our team and the players and we go, wait, that's the performance from week 1? You scored no points? I mean, we saw elite running backs struggle, top picks struggle. People that went all in on certain players already are disappointed. And it's like, are you kidding me? And so I took Travis Kelce, 3rd overall. I've been talking about him all off season. Well, big goose egg week 1 because he's injured. How long will he be injured? And then what about some of the rookies, right? Some of them looked great in week 1. Other ones, like my boy Jahmyr Gibbs, he looked great, but he didn't necessarily produce at the level that we had hoped in game 1. But in all of these situations, and one of the key elements to being a strong fantasy manager is to be patient. It is week 1. And so we have to remind ourselves, because we were watching on Sunday, and we were watching the backup running backs in LA for the Chargers and the Rams. What about the starters? We want more touches for Eckler, but Joshua Kelly is lighting it up. And so, what does that mean for Eckler? And I have Cam Akers with the Rams. Kyron Williams looked pretty good. But in every kind of situation with all of our players, kind of the disappointments from week 1, we have to be patient with these guys. And it's especially true for rookies and even Bijan Robinson. Yes, his name is Bijan. I heard that corrected. So I'm trying to correct everybody. I've been telling everybody it's Bijan. But anyway, he looked great with Atlanta. But Tyler Algier was taking a bunch of his carries as well. And so all of a sudden, oh no, is he in this committee? We have to be patient. Bijan is going to light it up this year. He's going to be awesome. And he already was. We already saw it. But he's going to be even better as the season goes on. But we have to be patient. And what about some of these quarterbacks? What about Josh Allen? Not good. Not good week 1. But we have to be patient. The Bills should figure it out. They still have the weapons. They went up against the tough defense last night. It was a weird game. A lot of kind of pressure and weirdness, all that took place last night. The Bills, not good. We have to be patient with Josh Allen. The Eagles. How about the Philadelphia Eagles? They jumped out to that 16-0 lead. They allowed the Patriots to come back in that game. The offense kind of sputtered. What was going on? We got to be patient. Jalen Hurts will be fine. It's 1 week. And so we're here on this show today to encourage you as a fantasy manager to be patient. There's a reason that you drafted the guys that you drafted. Trust that they will get things going eventually. And they'll demonstrate eventually why you put your faith in them on draft day and why you were so excited to get those rookies. Give them time. Allow them to develop. Allow the season to unfold, and we have to be patient. Now, some of the injuries, yeah, it's unavoidable. It's part of the deal. But for some of the kind of the performances that weren't what we thought they would, as quickly as we want them to, we want all of our players to light it up week one, and that's not always the case. And so how does this relate to our own lives? We understand the need for patience in our life, but it's so hard. We want things to happen right away. When we pray about something, we want answers immediately. And we want to see, the blessings, and we want to see, God working evidently right away. But what is the key? We have to be patient. We have to allow the Lord to work. He's working behind the scenes. He's setting things up. He's doing things that we can't even imagine. But we have to be patient. And what is the key to patience? It's trust. And so we go back to fantasy football. We trust these players. I trust Travis Kelce. I know what he's done before. I trust him. So once he gets healthy, he'll be great. He'll be great for my team. But I got to be patient. I got to wait for him to get healthy. And so in life, as we follow Jesus, we have to be patient in the circumstances that we face. Not everything is going to happen in our timing, how we want it, when we want it. It's week one. I want all the answers. No, we have to trust that God is working things out according to his will, according to his plans. And so we have to be willing to be patient. And so let's go to the Bible a little bit and a couple encouraging verses for us today, because the reality is it's really hard to be patient and we can't do it in our own strength. And so we must rely on the Holy Spirit to empower us to be patient. And so here's what Galatians 5:22 and 23 says. This is the Amplified Version. But the fruit of the Spirit, the result of his presence within us, is love, unselfish concern for others, joy, inner peace. Here it is, patience, not the ability to wait, but how we act while waiting. And then kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That is the fruit of the Spirit. And so today we're talking about patience. And so in this Amplified translation, it says, not the ability to wait, but how we act while waiting. And so you and I are waiting for something today. We're waiting for something at work. We're waiting for healing. We're waiting for answers. We're waiting for something. And we have the choice. Are we going to be patient? And how will we act while waiting? Are we calmly and confidently surrendered to God as we wait for things to click and become clear? Is our hope in him, his character, and his power? Do we stand firm during delays and trust that he'll reveal his faithfulness and goodness and remind us why we put our faith in him? We have to be patient and we have to trust. Are we willing to do that? And how are we acting while waiting? Romans 12:12 implores us to rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Romans 8:25, but if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Galatians 6:9, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So we have to be patient in fantasy, in life. Let's not give up. Let's continue to be patient, continue to trust. And then Psalm 27:14, wait patiently for the Lord, be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. And so what ends up happening already in fantasy, this is the temptation that we all face this week. We're going to drop players. We're going to trade players that we drafted, that we were so bought into, because after week one, you didn't perform how I thought you would. You're done. Now, there are a few players that may be the case. We have to consider it. But for many of these guys, we've got to be patient with them. Give them time. Get the season up and rolling. There were a few weather situations across the league. Let's be patient with those guys. The Steelers were going up against the 49ers. Let's be patient with those Steelers. Don't give up on them just yet. And in life, we can't give up on God. We just, if there's a delay, if things are taking a little bit longer than we want, we have to trust that he's good and faithful and things will work out according to his plan, and his plan is best. So let's wait on the Lord. Let's be patient, and let's not get, anxious, angry, bitter, frustrated as we wait. Let's just be calm, confident, fantasy and life, but more importantly in life, as followers of Jesus, that's how we demonstrate the power that we have within us. We demonstrate, the love that we have in Christ, because I'm patient, I'm good, I'm trusting, I'm calm, confident. He's got this. So I hope that is encouraging to you today, no matter what you're waiting on and whatever requires patience for you today. It's tough. I'm right there with you. I'm waiting on a number of things right now, and it's really hard. It is. But I have to wait patiently for the Lord. I have to wait patiently for the Lord because I trust him. I really do. It's hard, but I trust him. He's faithful and good. So let's cling to him. All right. So there you go. That's this week's breakout. We begin the show with what's most important. And that is just reminding ourselves of the character of God and that he's worthy to be trusted. And so as we talk about this topic of patience, we'll hear some other players that we're going to have to either choose to panic about or choose to be patient. And so we'll ask Harrison about that. And so as we transition to some more fantasy talk, we bring on one of our coaches here, Harrison Zuckerberg. Week 1 is over. It was a wild end to week 1 with the Jets and the Bills last night. A lot of injuries already in week 1. What are a couple of your kind of overviews and takeaways from the first week in fantasy football?
For me, the biggest takeaway has to be the overall lack of fantasy production across the NFL. When you look at the big superstars, there was only 16 guys who scored over 100 total yards, all-purpose yards in the NFL this week. So the odds that you had one on your team was probably only one guy with a really elite game, because you had guys in there like Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell having huge games who definitely were not rostered or started going into this week. And then looking at the touchdown vulturing as well, you didn't have a lot of big games because people weren't scoring multiple touchdowns. You talked about the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, Bijan gets his first NFL touchdown. Now it's Tyler Allgeier's time to take the next 2 after that. You look at the Baltimore Ravens. Justice Hill runs in 2 touchdowns on the 1-yard line. He was definitely not being started in any fantasy leagues. And then even for receivers as well, the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill had a huge game. You're looking at Waddle have a huge game. But instead, around the goal line, it was River Craycraft who caught a touchdown, who I had never heard of before for the Miami Dolphins. So I'm really concerned about what this is going to mean for fantasy. I know we have to be patient, but all offseason, we were talking about the running back by committee approach, the offense by committee approach, and that's what we really saw. Are the days of guys getting 3 touchdowns going to be gone? Because, okay, you've had a good game, but let's give some other guys some opportunities. Is that really going to limit the upside for fantasy? I looked up and down my roster, and I couldn't really complain about too many people's performances. A lot of guys, got 12 points, 13 points, but there was very few guys who had that 25, 30-point game. In fact, the Dallas defense was the highest scoring player that I had across any of my rosters this week. So it'll be interesting to see, are we still going to get those boom weeks to come? Or is this going to be a lot of mediocrity and parity among fantasy players?
All right, Harrison. This is the reminder that we must all have every single season. The offenses take a while to get going. So we have to be patient with the offensive side of the ball in the NFL. And we always talk about preseason. Oh, preseason, what a waste of time. Well, the Eagles admitted it. Nick Sirianni's like, I think we're going to have to play our guys a little bit more in preseason. That's the reality. These guys aren't all in rhythm yet. I think about Joe Burrow. He hasn't played in over a month. He's been injured, and they just throw him back in there week 1, and we expect him to light it up. It's not going to happen. And so the big takeaway for me was just how poor the quarterback play was across the board. Anthony Richardson actually looked pretty good, which I was wrong about, so I got to confess that. But you talk about Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and a number of these guys. even Mahomes was okay. But it wasn't the big, light it up from the quarterback position, which then, of course, affects receivers and everybody else. But the offenses will get going. It just takes them, it really 4 weeks. We have to give these offensive 4 weeks before we start seeing huge offensive performances. Now, the Dolphins and Tua, September's their time. This is their time. So enjoy it now. If you've got Dolphins players, now's the time. I don't know if Tua can remain healthy for a whole season. We've yet to see it. But for now, hey, the Dolphins will put up some points. So the other big takeaway for me, some of these teams like the Steelers, like Washington, like Chicago, we had high hopes for them. They're not there yet, but we got to be patient with them too. So a little bit slow start for those offenses that got some hype and excitement, and even some of them actually played in preseason. So maybe my theory is wrong there, but it's just everybody's got to play together, because even in the preseason, maybe a quarterback played, but the receivers didn't play. Like Terry McLaurin didn't play in Washington. So there are a number of situations like that. But let's continue this conversation about kind of this. Who do we need to be patient about, and are we actually panicking? And so there were a number of poor performances over the weekend. And Harrison, I'll let you get us going on here. We'll start with, I mentioned Washington. All right, Antonio Gibson, 3 carries, 9 yards, 1 reception. Both of us were high on him coming into the year. Patience or panic with him?
I'm not panicked about his usage and what he did with the 3 carries and the 1 reception, because I think that was kind of going with the game plan. He's going to be involved in a lot of games where they are losing because they have to pass. He's the passing down back. If they're up and they're trying to milk the clock, then it's going to be Brian Robinson. But what is really concerning to me was the fumble that he had in the first game, because this has been an issue for him his entire career and was primarily the reason why he's no longer the starter. And they drafted Brian Robinson 2 years ago to bring him in and be that guy who they can count on. I mean, if he is going to fumble in week 1, week 2, I don't see Eric Bieniemy having a pretty long leash for Antonio Gibson. I mean, he could be off the field really soon, and we could even see Chris Rodriguez, the rookie they have this year, come in and take some of those touches. So if the season keeps going on and he goes 2 or 3 weeks and doesn't fumble again and gets the trust of the offense back, I think he'll be perfectly fine. But it is really hard being a, fumbling prone guy to then fumble in your first game with a new offensive staff and be able to go to them and be like, hey, I promise I'm not going to fumble again. Give me more workload, because he hasn't been able to do it in the past.
Yeah, I'm gonna remain patient. I'm not gonna draw any conclusions yet. That was an ugly game with Arizona. And let's go a couple teams, and there are multiple players underneath these teams, starting with the Giants. And Saquon Barkley didn't do much. Daniel Jones struggled mightily. My boy Darren Waller, he played, so that was good, but wasn't very involved. It's about 6 fantasy points. Didn't really play in the second half because they were losing so badly. And then you have the Steelers, who really struggled against San Francisco. So which of those, kind of 2 teams and the players on those teams that you're maybe most concerned about, or who you're willing to be patient with?
Yeah, the Giants I'm concerned about, just because I was never really on the Giants hype train going into the season. I loved Darren Waller, but I didn't want any of the other receivers. I was out on Saquon Barkley, out on Daniel Jones. So this wasn't really too surprising for me, because I thought they were a pretty overrated offense going into the season anyways. All they really had going for them was Darren Waller. But I think the really interesting thing from these 2 teams is the Steelers and the overall offensive philosophy that they had there. This was a team that for the last couple of years leaned heavy on the run to establish that, move the chains, and then worked off the pass from that. And now they got down early, but we saw only 3 rush attempts for Najee Harris in the first half, which is part of that because they were losing the 49ers, is part of it because that's what they actually want to do. I don't know, but there were a lot of drives that started out where it was pass on first down, incompletion, pass on second down, incompletion. Now they're in 3rd and long and they aren't able to convert. I don't think Kenny Pickett is good enough at this point in his career to be someone that is going to pick apart a defense passing 40 times a game. And if that's what they want to do, then I think I have a little bit of concern for this team, because I think they need to gain some momentum first running the ball. I mean, we've seen this in the past with Steelers teams. During the end of his career, Ben Roethlisberger was leading the league in pass attempts. So is that actually how they want to play and how Mike Tomlin wants to play? And they just haven't been able to do it the last couple of years because they had Mitch Trubisky and rookie Kenny Pickett? Or are they going to go back to the run game for the next few weeks to come? And it was just because they were playing the 49ers and we know how great their defense is. I don't know, but I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do in week 2 from a play calling philosophy.
So Deontay Johnson is banged up. It looks like he's going to miss a few weeks. So that's very concerning. I do have him in one league, but I get excited about George Pickens. So I think he'll be good over the coming weeks. And even Allen Robinson got involved a little bit. I'm not sure I'm running to the waiver wire to get Allen Robinson. Probably not the value that I don't see the upside there. But I'm going to be patient with the Steelers because they played against the 49ers. A weird game that I watched a good bit of was the Jaguars and the Colts. And I was very impressed with Richardson, like I said. And Michael Pittman, wow, he had a huge game. He was awesome. The run game was horrendous overall with those running backs. So get Zach Moss. He's injured, but whenever he comes back, at least he'll get a shot to be the running back there. Of course, before whatever we don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. And then we had somebody ask on YouTube, do you go pick up Pittman? If he's on the waiver wire, absolutely you get Pittman. So I was wrong about Richardson and I was wrong about Pittman. I don't have any Colts players. I think I have Zach Moss. But I would not with Jack. The other side of that game was Jacksonville, and I was starting to panic with how poorly they were playing. They finally got it together. I think they'll be fine. So no panic in Jacksonville. However, Christian Kirk, we wondered about him. So Calvin Ridley lit it up. Awesome game. Day one, boom. Okay, he's the real deal. He's back. Any of those questions were answered. Zay Jones, really good. I avoided him this year. So Christian Kirk was the forgotten man in week 1. Will that trend continue? Harrison, are you panicking with Christian Kirk, who ended up going fairly high in drafts?
I'm not panicking right now. I think, again, this was a really weird game. I was watching this game as well. And you were always, going to get the feeling that, okay, here we go. The Jags are going to drive down the field and score a touchdown. And then they never really did. It was kind of a lot of inconsistency from them with big plays and then not being able to sustain drives. And I think Christian Kirk just got lost in all of that. I agree with you. We saw Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley play extremely well. I think he is definitely going to be a more inconsistent player this year, but he's going to have his weeks. If it gets to week 3 and we still haven't seen a game where he has more than 2 or 3 receptions, then I would be concerned. But I also would not be surprised at all if he has, 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown next week. And everyone who dropped Christian Kirk or traded away him after the first week of the season said, "Oh my gosh, I should have kept him. I knew he was going to be good. Why did I panic after week 1?"
Yeah, that's a good buy low candidate. I think so. All right. So a lot of players we can kind of go through and, hey, patience or panic. I lean toward patience early in the season. Now, some of the injuries, obviously there's some panic there. But I don't think, other than the Giants, I think the Giants are the only team where it's a full-on panic. I think the Bears will make some adjustments. They're still young. We got to be patient with them. Kansas City will be fine. A number of these teams will be okay. Now, the Panthers, that's my team. It could be a long season. There's some panic there, but I don't think there's anybody other than Miles Sanders who did okay. But you drafted him fairly high if you went in on Miles Sanders. So there's a touch of panic there because Chuba Hubbard actually played a lot, and so there's a little bit of a committee there. But that could be okay. Even though they might be down in games and not run as much. But anyway, so we'll transition though. We'll do a little thing we call fantasy shenanigans, and we've done this over the years. This year we're gonna shift this segment a little bit. We're gonna talk about some of the kind of surprising performances, good or bad, and just kind of shenanigans of, wait, this guy scored that many points, good or bad. And so we'll start on the surprising shenanigans bad side. Drake London, he was nothing. What happened to Drake London? 0 fantasy points. It was outrageous. 0 receptions on 1 target. So that was wild to me. The other crazy thing was New England. Mac Jones, he lit it up. He threw the ball 54 times. So Bill O'Brien taking over as coordinator. Mac Jones with an actual NFL offensive coordinator might be okay. Can that continue? What other kind of shenanigans for you surprised you from the weekend?
I think the biggest one for me was the Rams receivers.
Yes.
Because everyone thought Van Jefferson was going to step in and then have a good game week one with Cooper Kupp out, because he's been good there in the past. They were hyping him up in the offseason, saying he was going to have the best season of his career. But it does not matter. Matthew Stafford only throws to the slot. Whoever is playing in the slot for the Los Angeles Rams is going to get 10 receptions in that Sean McVay offense, which was a combination of Puka Nacua and then Tutu Atwell as well, who both had huge games and were really overlooked in fantasy going into this week. So I think that's the funniest one for me, because even when Van Jefferson has the opportunity or Tyler Higbee has the opportunity to step forward, the slot guy is always going to get the work. They're going to play within the McVay offense. The philosophy is not changing.
Puka and Tutu. You can't make this up, but they lit it up. Man, Tutu Atwell was sitting on the waivers all week long, and I strongly considered it, and I didn't pull the trigger. So now I've got the choice to go get him this week. So we'll do waiver wire pickups in just a little bit. Yeah, so those were the kind of the main shenanigans for me. I mean the Chargers with Joshua Kelly, who I was thrilled about. So I was real high on Joshua Kelly, drafted him in a couple leagues, but that was somewhat surprising just how involved he was. Maybe Eckler's a touch banged up, so we'll see about that with his ankle. And then also talk about the Rams. I mean, Kyren Williams, he was RB11. About 19 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns, and I'm concerned about Akers. I'm genuinely, there is some panic there, but that was some shenanigans for me because I was in on Akers this year, so that was disappointing. But let me know your fantasy shenanigans. What happened in your your teams this week, and what were the most surprising, good or bad performances on your end? Any other shenanigans? You can leave those comments wherever you're watching right now. All right, this will be a segment we'll do just probably this one time. Maybe we'll do it in a few weeks as well. But it's just the regrets that we have about the players that we chose not to draft, or just the players that we weren't able to draft. That's the tough thing about a snake draft. There's just certain guys that you'll never have the opportunity to draft based on value and ADP and all that kind of thing. And so a couple of guys that I wish I drafted, but just didn't draft this year. 2 receivers that I loved. I just couldn't get them. One, Romeo Doubs. And I just was out on Green Bay. And I'm realizing that may have been a foolish thing. I do have AJ Dillon, which now if Aaron Jones is out for any amount of time, that could be pretty good. But Doubs, man, wide receiver 15, 2 touchdowns. He was even playing with an injury. So I missed out on that. The other guy I knew from last year who was awesome, Rashid Shaheed in New Orleans. And you knew that I was all in on the Saints. I went all in on Chris Olave, which was great, but I should have picked up Rashid Shaheed. And if he is available on waivers, absolutely get him. This guy is really talented, and he can run out of the backfield. And with some of their running back depth issues early in the season with Kamara being suspended, he could be involved there. But man, 5 catches, 89 yards, touchdown, rushed a couple times. Very impressed with him. So I'm bummed that I missed out on him. What about for you, Harrison? Who are some guys you regret drafting after their week 1 performance?
The biggest one for me is Tyreek Hill, because he was someone where in a lot of my drafts, I was picking, either in the first 3 picks where I was going to go Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, or Jamar Chase. Or once I got to that 5-6 range, I was looking to go, maybe Bijan Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, like you mentioned. I just never ended up grabbing Tyreek Hill in the first round because the value wasn't really there. I was looking at my big board. I'm like, all right, well, if he's 6th or 7th on my big board, I'm going to take these 5 guys before. And I really wish that in some leagues I had drafted Tyreek Hill instead of taking, McCaffrey or taking Bijan, because he is unbelievable. And I've never had him on a fantasy team. I can't believe that I've never had him. He's been one of the best players in the NFL, but just never worked out for some reason. And this year I'm really regretting it because I could have reached for him and gotten him on a team, but I didn't. And then the next guy that I think I was also in on with you was Calvin Ridley, but the value was just never right because I wasn't going to take him in the 3rd round. I was going to hope that he got back to me in the 4th, and he just never did. I wasn't going to take him over someone like Chris Olave or someone like Jalen Waddle, who I had ranked higher. But just it's unfortunate sometimes where you're drafting, you aren't able to get guys that you're really high on just because the value isn't there. And that was one guy where I immediately regretted it, because seeing how good that he was week one, we were both saying he could easily finish as a top 15, top 10 receiver in this Jaguars offense. And that might be what he ends up doing. And even if you did reach for him and take him in the third round, that would be a steal.
Yeah, you're loving life. That was a start of things to come. That's going to be a big year for him. And I've got Trevor Lawrence, so excited about the weapon that he has in Ridley. All right, so here on the show, we will continue throughout the season to do a lot of accountability and confession. Now, after week one, it's hard to draw drastic conclusions and say that we're wrong. And so the theme of today is about being patient, but we'll confess and admit, a few things maybe off the bat that we were wrong about. And for me, I've already said it multiple times. I got to say it again. Anthony Richardson really impressed me, because I thought all I heard was he's raw. It's going to take time to develop. I thought about how bad the Colts were last year, but they came in and that offense really moved the ball. And Richardson was running. He was confident. He was big. He's athletic. Very impressed with him. So he finished QB7. What a great start for him. I was sort of out on Jordan Addison, or I just wasn't willing to commit to Jordan Addison. And already, 4 catches, 61 yards, a touchdown on a day where Minnesota wasn't great. They lost to the Bucs. Addison, he's already going to be their number 2 guy there. And so I wish I would have gotten him and kind of whiffed on him. I was wrong on the Packers. And then we'll see what happens with Mike Williams. I think we got to be patient with Mike Williams, but I went all in on him. He was my wide receiver 1 this week, and he did get banged up, but he wasn't as involved as I would have liked for him to be. Only 4 receptions for 45 yards. And so hopefully he gets healthy and he's good, but at least initially, got to confess, all right, maybe that was not great to roll into the season with him as my number 1 wide receiver on a team. So we'll get to some of my wins in a moment, but Harrison, where else do you need to confess or hold yourself accountable this week?
For me, my 2 big accountability points are at quarterback with Joe Burrow and Justin Fields, because those were the 2 guys that I was really high on. I thought they were going to outperform where they were being drafted. Burrow, awful week 1, only 3 points. Justin Fields had a little bit better week. I think he scored about 14 points, depending on what format you're in. Finished around QB 13, 14, which wasn't terrible, but wasn't the great game that we were expecting to see from the Bears right out the gate. So that's something that we have to hold on to a little bit longer, not panic. They're good players. Hopefully they will improve as the season goes on. But that's definitely my biggest mistake right now, is going so heavily on those 2 guys and not getting more Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence in drafts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about Herbert. I've got Herbert. So even though he didn't have a huge day because they ran the ball so well, but it will come. It'll come. That's a high-powered offense. Now, whether they're going to win games, looks like it's going to be an issue once again. I don't know if Staley's the answer there in LA. But let's get to a fun segment for Harrison and I. This is our chance to and I don't want to say brag, but just share our excitement about some of the players that we've gone all in on. Throughout the offseason, we pounded the table for certain guys. We let you know what we were convinced of. And so here are some of the names. Week 1, I'm thrilled with how they performed. Jakobi Meyers, let's go. 31 fantasy points, 9 catches, 2 touchdowns. Could he be Jimmy G's favorite guy this year? It's definitely possible. I was a little lower on Davante Adams. So far, so good. He entered concussion protocol, so hopefully he gets better soon. Nick Chubb, he's going to be great this year. Didn't get into the end zone week 1, but he's going to be fine. They're going to use Ford a little bit more than I would have hoped, but still excited about Nick Chubb. How about Nico Collins, an underrated wide receiver I went all in on? 6 receptions, 80 yards, very solid. In a day where, there wasn't a ton of production across the league, Nico is going to be involved. The Texans are going to be losing every week. They're going to have to throw. The defense will get a little soft, right? He'll be able to just rack up PPR points. So excited about that. And then also I mentioned Joshua Kelly, thrilled about what he's going to do this year. And then we're both in on Chris Olave. So I'll let you talk about Chris Olave.
Yeah, Chris Olave was a big one because a lot of people thought, oh, Michael Thomas is going to come back. He's going to be more of a... No, he's not. Chris Olave is the guy in New Orleans. He is a fantastic player, and you're going to get this week after week from him. He's going to be a constant 7 receptions, 90, 100 yards guy this season. And the breakout's already happening. So maybe trade for him if someone's unsure about or looking to sell high. I don't know why they would be, but he's someone you definitely want on your team. Another guy who I was super high on, and the fantasy production didn't really show this week, but the involvement did, and that was James Cook. And he got 16 touches in the Bills offense, which will be huge for him going forward as they rebound from that week 1 loss. And then another running back who I was big on is Kenneth Gainwell, and he is the guy in Philadelphia. No Rashad Penny, no DeAndre Swift. He was the guy going in last round. I was like, I'll take a flyer on Kenny Gainwell in the last rounds of drafts to be the guy there. Worked out. And then finally, I have to give some love to Rashee Rice, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Touchdown.
That was one of I'm convinced that he's going to be the guy there for Patrick Mahomes that he can trust. And he may already be that guy. We may not have to wait any longer because Kadarius Toney, 4 drops. Sky Moore, I think he had 1 point in fantasy. Rashee Rice got the first touchdown of the Chiefs season. He got a few more catches after that. I think he is going to be great in Kansas City. And I don't think there's any reason for Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball to anyone else but him and Travis Kelce. I mean, we saw what happened when he tried to throw to Kadarius Toney. Lots of drops and a pick 6. So Rashee Rice is going to be the guy there. I'm happy about that.
Are we really ready just to write Toney off? Is it over? I don't know. I always have to catch myself because I remember years ago when Jamar Chase couldn't catch the ball and I wrote him off. What a huge mistake that was. So I'm not sure that Toney's on that level, but you hate to draw too many conclusions. Week 1, a couple drops. It was ugly. It was national TV. He was not ready for the moment. There's still some talent. There's still some investment there, though. Mahomes can make these guys shine. We'll see. We'll see.
The funniest part to me about Toney was that he had a terrible game. Like, terrible. I think it was the lowest graded PFF game in like the last 10 years or something like that. Obviously, he had the drop pass that led to the pick 6, which changed the course of the game for the Lions. But then he was on Twitter just going at the Giants as they were losing to 40 points on the Cowboys, clowning them. It was like, dude, your team just lost as well. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like you got to step up your own play before you can go after the Giants. Like, let's see something, Kadarius.
No kidding. Absolutely. One final guy I got to mention, Brandon Aiyuk. Oh man, this guy's amazing. And he was still, like, in some leagues, he was undervalued. And then in other leagues, he went earlier. And I thought that he was going to wait or he'd slip to me. So I'm glad I've got him in at least one league. But he was wide receiver 2 this week. Almost 37 fantasy points, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns, 129 yards. Brandon Aiyuk will have a huge season with Brock Purdy. I was impressed with it. We love the 49ers offense, wondering, okay, who's it going to be in San Francisco? Well, it's going to be McCaffrey and Aiyuk. And Brock Purdy is the real deal. Now, is he going to light it up in regards to, running it all over the field and that kind of thing? Probably not, but he's the perfect fit for the 49ers, and he's got all the weapons around him. So this is the 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC right there with Philadelphia. And we go back to that NFC Championship game. If Brock was in that game, they might have been the team in the Super Bowl. So I'm buying into all the hype and the excitement in San Francisco and thrilled to have Aiyuk and McCaffrey on my fantasy team. So there you go. That's what we're excited about. What are you excited about after week 1? Who on your team? Who are you most convinced about heading into the season that at least week 1 showed up for you? Everybody else we got to be patient with, but at least there are a few guys that came through for us. So you can leave those comments. Looks like we got some good stuff going on in the chat. So keep that coming. I appreciate it. All right, we'll wrap things up today. Let's talk injuries, waiver wire, and as we like to ask, Harrison, is he legit? So, a couple players that had kind of good showings week 1. Start at the tight end position. Everybody is trying to figure out, who do we get at tight end? Everybody scrambled to get Isaiah Likely. He didn't show up. I'd be patient with him, though. I'd be patient. I don't rule out the Ravens just yet. How about Zay Flowers, by the way? Another good player that we were high on. But Hunter Henry ended up having a nice week. He was a top tight end, 19 fantasy points, touchdown. And Hayden Hurst, tight end too. 16 fantasy points and a touchdown. So either of those two guys, do you see, okay, this can continue? Are these guys legit? And if they are available on waivers, do you go get them?
I do not think that either of these guys are legit. I think Hayden Hurst, he did this last year with the Bengals where he had like 4 catches for 50 yards in the first game of the season. And then I don't think ever had more than 2 catches in a game for the rest of the year. I just think he'll catch a touchdown here and there. I don't think he's going to be a weekly producer. And Hunter Henry, I think he's a great tight end. We are definitely going to see some more good games on a Hunter Henry, but I don't think that we are going to see the Patriots throw the ball 50 plus times every single game either. They have
no. They got to play Buffalo. They got to play Miami.
I think they brought in Ezekiel Elliott for a reason. They have Ramondre Stevenson there. I think this is still going to be a run heavy team. The Eagles, I don't know what was going on with them. They kind of let their foot off the gas and let them get back into the game. I think Hunter Henry's a good tight end. I don't think he's going to be finished as the tight end 1 many more times this season, though.
Well, maybe not, but I'm in on Henry. Go get Henry. When he's healthy, he's good. Mac Jones will find him. I think that's a sign of things to come. So I would definitely pick up Henry. Couple rookies that looked good, not necessarily huge performances, but like Sam Laporta, tight end with Detroit, 5 receptions, 39 yards. And then your boy, Rashawn Johnson. I always forget his name.
Yeah.
Roschon Johnson. He was the guy that emerged in that backfield. So of those 2 rookies, who do you like?
I am more in on Laporta out of those 2 guys. I think he has the clearer path right away. Roschon finished the game with a really good stat line, but a lot of that came in the fourth quarter once the game was already over. Roschon did pretty much nothing in the first 3 quarters of the game. It was really the final drive of the game where the Bears were just trying to get garbage time points where he got most of his production. So I think he can definitely work into a larger role throughout the season. But I think next week, if you're picking him up and you think he's going to be the guy, I would not be surprised if he finished with 2 or 3 fantasy points, unfortunately. But I think he's very talented and definitely has a chance to do something special later in the year. And then one more guy from that Packers-Bears game, who if he is on waivers, go pick up, is Romeo Doubs. All offseason, I was saying that Romeo Doubs is the number 1 receiver in Green Bay, not Christian Watson. He is Jordan Love's guy, and we saw that week 1. Now, Christian Watson didn't play, but Romeo Doubs had a fantastic game. I don't think that is going to go away once Christian Watson comes back. 2 touchdowns. I think the Packers are for real, which I hate to say, but is something that I alluded to a few weeks ago that Jordan Love looked good, and this could be a good offense. So I would definitely go get Packers weapons. A.J. Dillon, if he's on waivers.
Luke Musgrave.
Luke Musgrave, another rookie tight end who had a good game. Should have gotten in the end zone if he didn't trip on himself on that one big play. So I think the Packers are definitely a team to invest in.
All right, so I always love the backup running backs. That's my favorite position in football, the fantasy. The backup running back. So who do I like? I like Tyjae Spears in Tennessee. Okay, 3 carries, 27 yards, 1 reception. Come on, Bryce, he barely did anything. The Titans stink. Well, he actually was on the field more than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's old. He's in the last year of his contract. This season could potentially unravel for Tennessee. Like, they'll have a good defense because they actually did okay preventing New Orleans from scoring touchdowns. But Spears out of the backfield. Once one of these other quarterbacks take over for Tannehill will not continue as the starting quarterback. He doesn't have it. I'm sorry. He's not good enough. And so it's going to be the new regime, the new, kind of new weapons. They got Burks there. Hopkins was probably a little better than I thought. But anyway, Tyjae Spears, go get him. Pick him up. Be ready for the production to come. The other thing in Tampa Bay. Now, they won, so that was good. They can't run the ball. They have a horrible running game. So you may say, I don't want any running backs, and that's fine. Avoid them. But if you're desperate for running backs, Sean Tucker is the guy to get. Rachaad White is not the guy in Tampa Bay moving forward. Sean Tucker's going to get an opportunity. He only had 5 carries this week, but keep an eye on him and go get him before he goes off. So Sean Tucker, rookie running back out of Syracuse, with Tampa Bay. And then let's see, is he legit? Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver in New England. Does it go to your theory about maybe they're not going to throw as much?
No, this one I actually think Kendrick Bourne is legit because I didn't draft Kendrick Bourne in any leagues. But when I looked back at my stat projections for the Patriots this season, I actually had him as my highest ranked Patriots wide receiver over Juju Smith-Schuster, over Devontae Parker, because I think he's just a really good player and will get work. He will get open in the offense. Big thing for Kendrick Bourne was in the first half of the game, he was not wearing receiving gloves and he dropped a big deep ball, put some receiving gloves on, and caught 2 touchdowns after that. So keep the gloves on, Kendrick. As long as you're wearing receiving gloves, I think he's going to be great. And then one more receiver that I'd like to mention. We mentioned the Deontay Johnson injury earlier. You said Allen Robinson has a chance there. I actually like Calvin Austin a little bit more because I think he fits that short, intermediate, quick game like Deontay did so well, a little bit better than Allen Robinson. He had 6 receptions in the loss of the 49ers. I think he's someone out of Memphis. He ran like a 4.2 40-yard dash a few years ago. He could have a good opportunity as the sort of short game guy there, especially in PPR leagues.
One last suggestion that normally I'm not sold on is pick up a backup quarterback. Sometimes it's easy, especially if you have a short bench in fantasy. You're like, all right, I got one quarterback. I'm all set. I was looking at a team in my league who has Aaron Rodgers. He has no backup quarterback. And this is a 14-team league. He's going to go to the waivers, and it's bleak unless he's going to pick up Zach Wilson. So get ahead of that. Go pick up Derek Carr. Put him on your roster. They didn't score many touchdowns last week. Derek Carr is going to light it up this year. That's a good fit there. Jimmy G, even in Las Vegas, might be a guy worth having on your bench. Brock Purdy. Just have somebody on your bench because Aaron Rodgers showed last night anybody can get hurt, anybody can go down. And not to mention we had some poor quarterback play. So you might want some options as well. If any of these teams do sort of falter moving forward, you need some depth at quarterback, where normally it's nice to just, all right, I got my one guy, I'm set. I'll worry about bye weeks later. I don't know. That was a wake-up call last night. So that's my final thought today. Anything else from you, Harrison?
Yeah, you mentioned Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson actually looked surprisingly good for the situation that he was put in. I mean, they weren't amazing, but they won the game. It was really weird how they won the game, but they won. I don't know. Could this be the greatest redemption story ever for Zach Wilson? Everyone hates Zach Wilson. They bring in Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers gets injured, then Zach Wilson's the one that leads the Jets to the playoffs for the first time in 15 years. I mean, that could be just the greatest. You can't even write that. I know everyone says the NFL is scripted and they had all those, ads going into the season about them writing the script with Travis Kelce's mom and stuff like that. If Zach Wilson leads the Jets to the playoffs or maybe even to like a conference championship or something coming in for Aaron Rodgers, that would be crazy.
I don't see it. I don't see it. You could just look. I was watching the Manning brothers last night. You can just see it in their eyes. They get so frustrated watching him. He doesn't have it. I don't see it. So what they do at quarterback will be really interesting, and how that affects the rest of the fantasy offense. All these players, Garrett Wilson drafted in the 2nd round. Breece Hall looked great. So I think people can be encouraged by that, but the jury's still out. I don't even know what to say. I'm thankful I don't have any Jets players. I don't have any. So Lazard, I have Lazard. So Lazard's probably done at this point with his boy going down. But that's a big deal. Of course, last night that was a huge deal. So we gotta wait and see how that all is going to play out. But I'm not sure you go get anybody on waivers. I think it's just sort of a hold on all these guys. You're not. I mean, are you going to trade Garrett Wilson? I don't know. You got to kind of ride it out, see what happens. Is Carson Wentz walking through that door? Tom Brady walking through that door? Nick Foles? They trading for Gardner Minshew? I don't know. You get Chase Daniel out of retirement? I don't know. I don't know who they get. Or do you ride with Zach Wilson? Your boy now. He's now Harrison's boy. He's jumping on the bandwagon, saying he's legit. Is that what we're saying? No, I don't think so. But all right, Harrison, great stuff. Week 1. Let's be patient. That's the theme of today. Let's be patient in life. Let's be patient. Let's wait on the Lord. Let's trust him. Let's be good at waiting as we rely on the strength of the Lord, to be patient, to trust that he is worthy to be trusted, to trust that he's working, to trust that his timing is right, that he is good and faithful. We trust in his character. That allows us to be patient. And the Holy Spirit within us gives us the power to be patient in life. And so in fantasy, it's also important. It helps. Let's wait on some of these rookies. Be patient. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's going to be awesome. Bijan Robinson, he's going to be awesome. We already saw glimpses of it in week 1. Well, thanks so much for listening today here on the Fantasy Football Fellowship podcast. Go become a member on fantasyfootballfellowship.com. Enjoy week 2. We'll recap it all next week. Can't wait. Thanks for being with us. Thanks everybody jumping in on the chat, for joining us live. This was fun. Season is underway. Let's go. I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan and a fantasy manager who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as fantasy managers who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast.